So before we get too far into this video, I just want to say my goal is to get to 10K subs. If you're watching my videos and you found any value at all, or even if you've just found them entertaining, please subscribe to my channel. Please like this video. Hugely would just appreciate it. It's really the only feedback loop that we get here as YouTubers, which is crazy to even think that I'm a YouTuber now. I've been doing this for a long time. So yeah, keep this short. Please subscribe. Thank you. So I've got a bunch of stocks to buy, but I can't because the market's closed. So I was traveling last week. I was going to record in Vegas. I was there for a conference. Went pretty well. I actually saw one of my Discord members there. It was cool. So shout out. I'll let you be anonymous for now, but that was the first time for me in real life. Just seeing somebody in the Discord in real life was completely random. It's kind of surreal. But yeah, long story short, got super busy. I was jet lagged both ways, tired, came back. So I did not record that episode. So what we're going to do for this next episode of the macro is we're going to use this time to review the current stocks in my portfolio and kind of give an indication of how I feel about them overall. I'm not going to buy or sell anything right now because it's Sunday and I can't, but this should give you a little bit of a starting point in your actual long-term analysis for these stocks. And I'm actually going to do this from a TA perspective. I originally was going to do fundamental analysis. I think I'm going to hold that off for next week. What I'm actually going to do is just open each one of these up in TradingView and starting on the weekly chart, give you my thoughts for, what the next move should be. Again, this is a long-term portfolio, so there's no point of me really starting on the lower time frames, right? So let's do just that. I am a day trader, so we'll mix kind of philosophies here, look at these from the weekly chart perspective. That being said, all of these buys and long-term investing in general, this is really important for those of you who are just starting your long-term investing journey, either by virtue of the show or maybe you started it a while back, okay? Buy companies that you believe in first and foremost, okay? You don't want to get too overly deep in the technical analysis in the long term. One of the easiest examples of this is Tesla, okay? Any earlier investor of Tesla, you had to have vision, right? Vision for the future, for the country, the world. I know that sounds big and crazy, but when you're investing in companies on a 20 or 30-year horizon, you really need to think, like, what are the possible opportunities for these companies looking that far into the future? If you're looking at things today and making 20-year buying decisions based off of today, you're going to feel really, really hamstrung and stuck in making these decisions. Because what's going to happen is you're going to have some winners and you definitely will have some losers. But again, using Tesla, which is an outlier, but it's a great example of this. The only people who made bank on Tesla were people who looked super far into the future and were asking questions like, what are the possibilities for this EV company? So that being said, let's go ahead and do some TA on some stocks in my portfolio. So what we have in the portfolio so far, we've got Apple, VOO, Tesla, VTI, Palantir, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Procter & Gamble, Invax, MMM, which is 3M, Berkshire Hathaway A-shares, TQQQ, which is a leverage project, Lululemon, Boeing, ARM, Johnson & Johnson, TLT, Peloton, Humasite, which is a thing apparently, and RTX Corporation. Okay, so these are all the stocks that I actually own right now. And you can see the share amounts are very, very low, like 0.2, 0.1, 0.14. For anyone new here, what I'm doing in the show is every week I invest $250. I missed last week, so I'm going to double up this next week. Doesn't really matter how it happens as long as we get about $250 a week on average, okay? Which is another point tidbit. Write this down. Some people call this dollar cost averaging. It's not super important that you stick perfectly to a schedule. It's more important that you stick to a schedule. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect, just get it done. Okay, I'm doing this for the sake of a video. I was traveling. Stuff is gonna happen to you in your life, whether you're traveling or, life happens. Plenty of reasons. It's totally fine, right? Getting in yesterday versus today when you're holding things over a year or years really isn't gonna matter. But let's go ahead and just take a look at Apple first. So this is Apple on the weekly chart. The first thing that I wanna look for is volume, okay? So starting here below, we see that there's a high volume green candle coming here, almost gapped here on the weekly. Okay, and you can see here, obviously the market is closed right here. We have a lower volume doji closing, so we should get some continuation on the weekly. Okay, looking for a move past here. If we just zoom out on Apple, we can see that in general, it has been an upward sloping line. And this is really cool to see on something that is, as notorious and well known as Apple, the company. Okay, if you're watching the news, you've probably heard about all of the up, down, and the macro analysis of the business, but we can see here that the general shape of Apple is a line like this, which is what we expect, right? If you've ever seen those charts in school where you're looking at the S&P 500 over years, and you can see that it goes up. Apple's a very large company, very core to the US economy, and that's what we expect. So despite all of the different news cycles about what they're doing and not doing, we can see that they are in fact in this general upwards trajectory, and there's a lot of things to that, right? They have their Mac business, their iPhone business, software business now. They're a multi-revenue business. And yeah, overall, I like them being in my portfolio. Let's take a look at VOO. So VOO is a ETF. It's an exchange traded fund. And let's just get the official definition of this for you guys. Okay, what is an exchange traded fund? Investopedia is a great resource, right? Exchange traded fund is a pooled investment security that can be bought and sold like an individual stock. Okay, ETFs can be structured to track anything from the price of a commodity to a large and diverse collection of securities. So that's exactly what VOO is, right? It tracks the S&P 500. You can look here in VOO if you want to look at their holdings. You can just select it in Robinhood. If you scroll down, you can actually see its top 10 holdings, right? And there's a full breakdown elsewhere. Large holder Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia, which means that the price of this is based off of the underlying movements of these stocks. These VOO and VTI are some of my favorite funds to invest in long-term, right? My real long-term portfolio is heavily invested in these, like a lot. It's just a very simple way to just invest in the U.S. economy, really. You know, if you're not bullish on the long-term outlook of the U.S. economy, I'm interested in what you're investing in. So far, it's given the best return and has the best outlook for the future. So that's VOO. Looking at the charts here, again, very similar to Apple. We did have actually not similar to Apple. So we have a high volume red wick, and it's reversing course here. So you can see here on the volume profile that there is a gap a little bit lower here on the weekly, but just taking a look, if we zoom way out on the weekly, we can see that it's doing this upward line. Love to see it. So obviously love them in my portfolio. We're gonna have to do this quicker. We've got a lot of stocks. Tesla. Whew. Tesla is an interesting one. In terms of long term, this one might not make the cut. I know I used Tesla as a darling child as an example earlier, but they're much more mature now. There's a lot of things that have happened with their business, and I'll just say this about Tesla. They need to figure out how they're going to maintain their edge in the EV market, either as a major supplier for the supercharger network, if they're going to continue to be a low cost creator of vehicles. Elon lowered the prices of their cars, for example. They have quality issues, right? The environment is very, very different for Tesla than it was a few years ago. Every automaker is making EVs now. And these automakers have years and years and years of experience of producing products at scale. Okay, it's something that Tesla continues to improve on. They were the first ones to do EVs at scale, but nonetheless, the competition is now in the game. And honestly, just don't think they have that much edge anymore. I'll be frank. I think that Elon also has made some poor business decisions with Twitter, which is unfortunate. I was much more of a fan of him in the past, but Twitter is a debt that is spread across essentially his entire portfolio at this point. And yeah, I think his dealings with Twitter is impacting his Tesla business and his SpaceX business, which is terrible to see, right? You don't want to be invested in a business and basically, however Twitter is doing is affecting your Tesla investment. They're just completely different industries. It doesn't make sense. So that's something I might actually just take out and play Tesla more on a near-term basis. VTI, very similar to Tesla, VTI, very similar to VOO. They're both exchange traded funds. I love VTI. I won't spend too much time on that. Palantir. Interesting. So you see the chart doesn't go too far back. It actually is all within the screen on the weekly. It goes back to Monday, the 5th of October in 2020. Palantir is an interesting company. They get talked about on YouTube all the time from big creators. Never really have came back and had that explosive run that everybody's been looking for. Okay, we can see that they're well under their all-time highs. Okay, all-time highs up here at 45.15. And that's really because a lot of their business is tied to the U.S. government, all right, which is a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing because they have large contracts, right, which make or break their business. They continue to come in, right? They're a partner of the government. The downside of that is you're not going to get like random outsized expansion in their business, right? All of these deals, right? I have a background in tech sales, selling enterprise software. These take years, especially with the government, right? I used to work in the government as a software engineer, U.S. Transcom. Okay, nothing moves fast. So what does that mean for their revenue streams, right? It's going to be lumpy and it's going to be pretty fixed until they get into more commercial products. So Palantir is something I might take out as well. I used to be much more bullish on them in the past. I just don't know from a long term how worthwhile they are having. And again, that's just based off the shape of this chart. I mean, the chart should the chart should generally look like this, and Palantir's looks like this, right? They haven't even came back to their all-time high. So it's just not, it's not a good look for a long-term investment, in my opinion. NVIDIA, cannot say anything but other than the opposite. You see I have a lot of lines here. I trade NVIDIA. Okay, looking at the weekly, similar story here. It's coming near the top. I do think the market overall is going to sweep all-time highs. NVIDIA obviously is an early actor in the race for AI. So I love NVIDIA's story overall. They could be a bit overpriced right now, but we've seen that things can be overpriced forever, right? i.e. Tesla. Things can literally be overpriced forever based off of future earnings potential. I think the cool thing about NVIDIA though is that they're selling shovels in the gold rush. Okay. So everybody who wants to do AI or do anything non-negligible with AI needs a place to run their models. They need data centers. And this infrastructure is complex. The compute needs are different or various and complex. And yeah, NVIDIA is invested in, again, selling the shovels in the AI race, right? It's a different shovel, right? Just like OpenAI is also selling shovels, right? All these different ChatGPT companies that people are building are really just using OpenAI, and OpenAI is making all the money on the back end. Okay. So yeah, NVIDIA, love them long-term. I think that they're just a solid business overall. I don't really see anything in the next few years outside of them possibly being overpriced that would make me not want to invest in them. But again, on a 20-year horizon, right? If this goes to, I don't know, $10,000 unadjusted, right? Over the next 50 years, who cares, right? So that's NVIDIA. We could go to Microsoft. Microsoft. All right. So I like the chart. It's generally an upward sloping line. Microsoft, again, another large business, core to the U.S. economy, similar to NVIDIA. I like what they're doing. Recently with some of their products, I mean, Microsoft has their hands in so many things. I think when it comes to AI and the potential for growth there, I mean, Copilot is an amazing product. It's one of the few AI tools that's actually worth, I think, the price that you spend on it. I use it to build ForceSpot, which if anyone's not curious what that is, you go to forcespot.com. It's a work in process, but lets me explore option prices, things like that, right? So why do I use it? Because let's go to the 10th and we'll see if there's any SPX 500 calls on the 10th, right? So you can see there's not that much volume, so just a few bars, but I use this to explore options. Okay, so they have that. They have Windows. They build computers. They do so many things I can't even think off the top of my head, like so many different things. Xbox, right? Like I'm not even gonna be able to think of them all because I'm looking at the camera and trying to film. So I love having them in the portfolio. Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble on the weekly. There's a bit of congestion here at the highs. Let's go to the 1 month just to be sure what we're looking at here. Yeah, so they just swept the previous all-time high. I like that. There's a nice bottom wick here. Higher volume. Yeah, so this looks like it wants to run. I like it near term. We'll leave it in the portfolio. I need to look more into their company. Honestly, don't know much about it. So they'll be on my list, possibly. NVAX, I'm going to tell you right now, don't like this chart at all. Now, I bought this because it was on the list. Somebody mentioned on the Discord. But yeah, I mean, they're all-time highs up here at 332. One of the things when you're looking at stocks and you look at it like, oh, it's super cheap. No, it is. It has very little value. Okay. So a cost is an adjective for a transaction, right? So if I were to buy this, it would cost me $8.88 a share. Okay. Now that doesn't mean that it's undervalued. It could be worth $8.88, right? So it's not worth, not only is it cost cheap, well, the cost cheap because it's not valued that much. And that's something you have to ask yourself. Sometimes things are highly valued and you can get them at a low cost. Sometimes things have low value and you overpay. You have to pay a high cost. So don't confuse cost and value in stocks or in life. But we can see here that this used to be up at $230 a share. So I want to see what happened with their company. I actually don't know right now. The chart right now looks terrible. This looks like an immediate removal from the portfolio. Let's look at the 1 month. I mean, yeah, this is not something you want in your long-term portfolio. This is something that you could trade possibly. I mean, we see some pretty clear cycles here. So yeah, that's on the chopping block for sure. We're going to see who recommended. I don't really care. 3M. Okay, 3M on the monthly. I do like 3M. 3M makes, what's the word I'm looking for? They make products that we use. So I like that they make physical products. I think that they'll always have a profitable business, I imagine. Actually, I haven't looked at any of their fundamentals here. Let's see if we can pull up their fundamentals in Robinhood. Is that even available? I never use this app, guys. All right, let's see. Estimated actual was 239. Okay, so they beat earnings. Interesting. I like 3M. I like the fact that they manufacture real products. I use their products all the time to like hang stuff up. So I like 3M. Sometimes it's as simple as buying things used. Berkshire Hathaway, I'm going to hold off talking on that one. I'm going to hold off talking about Berkshire Hathaway. We'll do an entire video on that. Whew, all right, we got to speed up. So Lululemon, let's go to Lulu. Look at its chart on the 1 month. Just swept highs. Looks like it might repeat this pattern if we invert it. Yeah, we need to see here if it's going to crack this area here, right? You can see that we're right up in this kind of support line here. So we'll see if we get some continuation there. I do like Lululemon overall. It's a retail manufacturer, so they're either going to continue to win or their entire business is going to blow up. Boeing, kind of the story for retail, honestly. Either stick around and become a household name, which you could say that they are, but Lululemon is too new of a business in my mind to be like a household name. They're very popular right now. They have been for a few years, but they could literally just fade into obscurity like that. Like that's just so common for that business. And you can name a gajillion brands that kind of just instantly fell off the earth, right? So we'll see. Boeing. Wham. I used to work at Boeing, and not for that reason, really, but I don't like the company. You know, I might stay invested in them overall, but I really I don't like the way they run their business. I don't like the fact that they toy around with human lives, you know. And I have a lot of personal feelings about this company, having worked there, and I have a lot of friends who work there as well. I think aerospace, it sucks because there aren't that many places to choose from in the first place. But yeah, I don't like them. I don't like what they stand for. I don't like the way that they organize their business, the way that they write software. And I certainly don't like the fact that they have been cheaping out on planes. So that being said, we can see their chart recently fell off a cliff. Boeing is kind of a semi-nationalized company, in my opinion. Okay, there's very strong interest from the government in this company being solvent. So even if Boeing ever like went under, all their IP and everything would simply get purchased, and they wouldn't disappear. Like Boeing can't go out of business. That's what I mean by it's nationalized. I truly believe that Boeing will never go out of business. All of the parts and everything would just get a different name slapped on it, and they'll just keep printing planes. ARM. Yeah, this might be on the chopping block. We'll see. I don't know about ARM, guys. Johnson & Johnson. It's another curious one. I want to look at their business overall. Yeah, I mean, I own some of these already as virtue of being invested in the S&P 500. And I'm not necessarily an activist investor, but I do care where I put my money, guys, like a lot. I'm a very sentimental guy, and I'm not going to. We'll see. I've heard some things about Johnson & Johnson, but we'll see. And it's a cool thing. I make enough money to do that. Okay, so like those of you are like, I can't believe you say that. Like, well, I don't care. You know, go watch somebody else. TLT. Yeah, I mean, these are bonds, so there's a different type of analysis that we need to use with this that I can't do in this video. So we'll look at that another time. Peloton might be on the chopping block as well. Okay, so Peloton is an interesting business. These guys sell bikes, very popular during COVID, and you could see them publicly struggle almost. Like I could see them like just not get it, which is like a funny thing to experience in life, is like when you watch a company just like not get why they were successful, and like the executives like kid themselves. But Peloton 100% only took off because of COVID. There's like the business for people, the total addressable market for people who want to buy a bike and just do that all the time outside of like a fad when you're forced indoors, is like, it's a fixed market. Like there's not infinite upside to this, which is a problem for a company that's publicly traded when you need to like keep growing your revenue. So this chart is not surprising. You know, I don't know about having them long-term as an investment. I mean, for them, I think it would be becoming a supplier for gyms and having, you know, recurring revenue from that. That's a very fixed business. I think the retail consumer business for cycling is, I mean, extremely iffy. I mean, that's just common sense. It's not something I believe in at all. Humasite. We have increased volume on these greens. So, I mean, let's see. We're increasing volume. We're testing the highs. I want to look at this. A very similar chart, though. I mean, their all-time highs at 1745. This is something that looks like it's tradable, but not something that I would invest in. So I might add that to the traded list. I might buy some calls on that. RTX, yeah, I like the chart. So very simple analysis, guys. And basically every chart that is worth buying should look like this, okay? If it doesn't look like that, if it looks like this, right, or something like that, if it looks like anything other than an upward sloping line for your long-term portfolio, you need to ask yourself, why? Why does it look like that? Okay, unless if they're a very new business, you could get away with sideways, but you don't want to be in a business necessarily that has a chart like this, right? And they're stuck under their all-time highs for a long amount of time. There just aren't too many frankly, too many businesses that do that and rebounded in a really strong, successful way. There's a reason that the market has priced them as such. Okay, let's talk about cost versus value again. Just because something costs little doesn't mean that you're getting it at a good price. You might just be spending exactly as much as it's worth. In the next video, we're going to rebalance some of these things. I'm actually going to create a spreadsheet with some investment criteria, and I'll go ahead and rebalance it, buy the stocks that you guys recommend to me. And then going forward, we're going to really talk more about the mechanics of this. So the first few videos are really just me getting it started, buying things that you've all said, which is cool. I've also thought about upping the contribution per week to like something crazy, like 1,000 per week or something. We'll see if this gets more traction. Let me know what you guys would like to see overall, what types of videos, and I'll do that. If you want to contribute to this, the list for stocks I'm going to buy, we can actually go to my Discord right now, is here. Okay, so we can see these are all the ones I'm going to buy tomorrow. So Ryan, Rick, Soundhound, Cypher, CADL, Baba, MSOS, Roblox, Peloton, again, Peloton, ENB, CWIN. These are all things I'm going to buy. I see Chubby Trader is bullish on Peloton. I'm really not bullish on Peloton. That is a really good example of how I think about long-term investing. Over 20 years, what is the upside for a business that sells at-home, cycling equipment? Space is hotly contested. Nearly anybody can create that business. And I do mean anybody. Like, I could go raise some capital and say, hey, I want to white label some software, build a bike, and you essentially are just a marketing company, right? So, and I know that's the case because there's been at-home cycling companies for years. Peloton just caught some edge with their community and the group workouts and all of that. Not bullish on the company. So you really have to have that vision, like I said in the beginning of the video. Nonetheless, this has been a long video. Thank you for watching this episode of The Macro. Please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next episode. Peace.